Evening. Oh, hi and welcome. I'll give another little story for you. Quite an interesting story involving mental illness. I'm afraid. Don't mind these things back here. This is all just it's canvas. I do some painting. Anyhow, I'll get on with the story because it's very interesting. So we had this. I go to our local church and been going for some time. I say a new vicar, she's been here a while now, but when she had only been there a year or so when this happened, and she was really keen on this young man who'd started hanging around the church and started making donations. He was homeless, and he sort of like gave his last like pound to the church, which of course is something that, that's a very churchy thing. Oh, he's given us his money, all his money. And then so he must be a really great guy. And I'm not, and he is. He may well be. But he was unfortunately tremendously mentally ill because what it turned out later was that I studied psychology and I could quite clearly tell you the man, unfortunately, was a paranoid schizophrenic. So this is where the story really begins, as you will find out. Just excuse me, just a gist of what sort of thing you can expect if somebody's suffering from this particular illness. So I was doing what they call church watch. We open the church up and I will sit there and make sure everything's all right, and if anybody wants to come in and chat. So anyway, this one day, this young man comes in, and he's coming and he's sitting with me. Now I always end up talking to people that nobody else wants to talk to. They just sort of pass them on, and I'll be the one sort of talking to them because nobody else wants to. And maybe because they knew I did psychology, they thought, well, he'll look after him. He's an oddball, so if John's an oddball, so let's let him look after the other oddball who's coming, or something. I don't know what the thing. I always ended up looking after the more unusual characters who would come in that nobody else wanted to bother with. So I was talking to this lad and being nice to him. I was a bit suspicious. There was something odd about him. Obviously, you don't really fully know until you get to talk to them. But it was, you could tell, quite frankly, that it was quite quick to tell that he had some kind of, let's say, delusions and some hallucinations, basically hallucinations, that sort of thing. Things, he was thinking that things were happening that weren't, or there were very strange things. One of the things he came in and said on that day, actually to somebody else, because it was just after a service, and the people from the service were sitting having tea and coffee, and I had arrived to keep the church open for another hour or so, and he was talking to some of the other people who'd been at the service, and he was telling an old woman who's a friend of ours that he was going to kidnap a dentist and torture them with a masonry drill. So it was obvious from the start but he said it in a jerky way, so you're like, oh, that's a bit edgy, but fine. You're thinking, oh, he's just being silly. It's a bit disturbing, but, I've heard worse on TV. But I'm starting to think, I'm a bit worried about this guy. And then all the others left, and he comes and he talks to me in a different part of the church. And it's at this point, it's quite clear there's something seriously wrong with him. And I can't remember the context for this, but he used a phrase that was, I'll never forget to this day, because I'm reasonably good at voices, so I'll do quite a fair impression of him. He used a phrase that it sounded like he thought he was God, which of course, being schizophrenic, that's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. And I told the vicar all of what happened and what was said, and I think he did get some help. But I remember this phrase, because obviously you would say that God blesses you, or you would say God bless you, but he said, I blessed them. I don't know who he was referring to, his family or friends or people he knew, but he went, this is exactly when he said, he used this phrase, he went, and I blessed them that day. I blessed them that day. I thought, what on earth does that mean? Blessed them? What do you mean, blessed them? Bless them with your presence. And I'm starting to think he thinks he's God now. His Messiah complex, or, oh well, it's probably just part of schizophrenia, but I'm not convinced that is what he thought. But he's saying, and I blessed them that day. And I often think of that phrase, it comes up, and I thought, because I've never actually heard anybody say, I blessed them. Because unless it's a priest, and obviously he was not a priest, and he was not Christ, so as far as we're aware, so I found it a very unusual turn of phrase. You go, I'm going to do it again because I love doing it. And I blessed them that day. So anyway, to carry on the story, what happened to this guy? Well, further on in our conversation, my conversation with him, he basically, this is where things went off the rails. He basically told me that he banged on a lot about his mother, and he banged on about his mother, and his mother was this and his mother was that, and then he said, and this was the thing that where I thought, right, yeah, this is quite worrying here. He said, and when my mother dies, I'm going to just go out and find someone and kill them. It's like, yeah, good for you. But of course, you're just trying to placate him because you're thinking, man, this guy is capable of, he's gone. He's in a bad way, in a bad place, and I don't want him to decide it's me that he's gonna kill. So or anybody else in the church, right? So like, oh yeah, when your mother dies, you're gonna kill someone. Oh yeah. Anyway, so we managed to placate him and just let him ramble on, as it were, and then obviously I told the vicar afterwards, and I don't know what happened to him. He did leave the area. He did say he was going to London, and he had left the area. Now, what happened in London, I don't know, but I did hear a rumour that he might have been arrested. Obviously, want the best for him, and that he got some treatment for his illness. I think maybe a secure unit would be a good idea, because he would need the treatment, and obviously he may be a risk to the public. But yeah, it was certainly an eye-opener. But we get quite a few schizophrenics in the church. One of our regulars had suffered from schizophrenia, but I won't go into that because I really don't know much about it. In fact, there were two regulars who are still, well, one still comes, the other one doesn't, and that's a story for another day. In fact, we won't probably get into that story for a while yet, because it may well involve the police sooner than later, and I don't want to go into the other one because he still comes, and but there was a lot of trouble with him. But then there was another temporary schizophrenic. He used to come very much in the same way as the other one. He would just drop by for these open churches, the church watch, and he would come in and get a coffee and a tea and whatever. But he used to have this thing where he was a bit like me, with long dark hair, curly hair. But he'd come in, and if you left him on his own drinking his tea while you went and did something else, you could hear him shouting out, and he'd go, this is what he'd shout, he'd go, I'm not Jewish, I'm not blooming well Jewish, stop saying I'm Jewish, I'm not Jewish. And there was nobody there. He was just sort of shouting at the invisible man. Somebody, like, obviously, he's very conscientious about not being Jewish. And he had a Jewish name, which I won't say, but I mean a first name. I don't know his last name. And he was always knocking around a couple of streets away from me, and obviously in the church. But he had a thing where, he would just shout, I'm not Jewish. How dare you say, don't you dare say I'm Jewish. I'm not Jewish. But I don't know what that was. But I'm told he was schizophrenic. Anyway, enough for now. I'll stop this video at 10 minutes. See you soon. Bye-bye.